audio was off. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Let me begin this again. I was chatting and didn't realize I had turned audio off in the streaming software. Oh boy, you learn something new every day. In this case, I've got OBS running on one hand, which is doing the stream, and I actually have an audio interface over here. I was looking at my audio interface for my levels. Looked good. Didn't realize I had shut it off for some reason in OBS. Any case, this is Scutage, a feudal administration warfare conspiracy campaign supplement for Barony by Better Games from 1992. I could have called this a retro read along, but I didn't. I'm just going to let Fan know. Hey, thanks for letting me know. That would have been bad. I didn't really get through much of the actual thing, which is good. Essentially, you're playing as rulers, masters of domains, your fiefs, and over. Let's see. I'll go back and read the one thing that I did read. Okay, well, you have a fief. You'll record stuff on a fief reference sheet. This can be played standalone or as part of another fantasy game. The fief survives as the ruler deals with random events and external threats, including actions of other players. Each ruler starts with a fundamental level of experience and 6 different executive options, and through play, you will gain bonuses to those options and attempt execution of authority to change your domain's status. So that is what we're here to do. Is a referee needed? So mentioned often, Scutage. I gotta figure out which way. Should I go with Scutage? I'm gonna go with Scutage. Scutage is designed to be played without a moderating referee. When one is available, he plays the role of other opponents generated by events in the campaign. He can also offer characters other options not presented in the rules. The game has a simplistic method of determining results, yet a delightful number of possibilities and twists. Scutage has even been played by mail with great success. Remember, this is 1992. I think at this point, email was kind of becoming a thing, but even not so much yet. So play by actual mail, still very much a thing. Do people play by mail now? I mean, good. Might be neat. Head-to-head and solitaire play. When Scutage is played without a moderating referee, the players attempt to build fiefs from their starting conditions to a point where someone obtains the true victory of dominion over all. The first goal of all players after survival is to obtain a position in the Curia Regis, or Overlord's ruling council. Once this is obtained, the player can win a true victory if at the end of any turn, campaign season, he obtains his personal goal. Upon becoming a member of the Curia Regis, roll a single 8-sided die and compare to the personal goal table to determine the player's victory conditions. This roll is known by all the other players. The roll represents the player's required allies or overall strength necessary to take the next ambitious step and declare himself the Overlord. Players may agree prior to play that before a player rolls for his victory conditions, he must also have at least one heir to ensure his bloodline. Oval Team Patrol stepped in to say, my memory of internet only goes back to 93 or 94, and it was still paper minute on Prodigy. Not great for playing games. Absolutely true. Yes, I have a feeling email was around and such, and bulletin boards. And I was, going to BBSs through modems and things earlier than that. But yeah, not ideal, often expensive. Mail, honestly, at that point was easier. All right, so they're going to give us these personal goals or victory conditions right here. So let's see. We would roll an 8-sided die, and we would get one of these. Each number is a different one, so there's just an equal chance of each of them. They are obtain all 4 classifications: freehold, canon, city-state, and barony. Assemble a fief arms and power of 20 points. Assemble prestige and wealth of 25 points. Assemble vitality and soul of 15 points. Assemble 10 points of treasury. Assemble 4 points of vassal/client states. Assemble 4 points of treaties. Assemble the support of all 8 guilds. Okay, so a lot of these are points based. I presume that if we were going to convert this or to use with another system that wasn't Conrad's Fantasy, which I think is the game that this is sort of, I guess, formally attached to, we might have to tweak those a little bit or convert them at some stage, but we're not worried about that right now. Personal goal will change with each ruler. If a ruler dies and transitions his fief to his heir, he rolls a new personal goal for the new ruler. Other players will, of course, attempt to thwart the rise and victory. Well, that's interesting, right? So once you get up to this point and you have this goal, all the other players are made aware of it, meaning that they can then try to thwart you. And it's a known thing, right? It's out there on the table, not a secret goal. And if you were playing a non-solo game and everyone rulers, it's pretty much going to be try to stop that guy from getting his personal goal. And of course, your personal goals are coming public also if you get to that stage. So you will also be, have attract obstacles in your path. Types of fiefs. In game terms, there are 4 classifications of fief: freehold, canon, city-state, and barony. In many ways, they are alike and all use the same fief reference sheet to record present status and changes in players' holdings. The real difference of each lies in the increased advantages in terms of additional tasks per campaign season that ruler performs. These classifications are not mutually exclusive, and a fief may be classified as combinations of these 4 region classes, i.e. a fief may be all 4 at once: freehold, city-state, canon, barony. And I think that was one of those goals, was to make one all of them. I think. All players begin with freeholds, unchallenged internally for authority and rule. His lands are those he has conquered by conflict of arms or subtle dealing. The player is independent warrior, hero, or conqueror, initially swearing loyalty to no other. He may later decide to affirm his fidelity to a greater overlord, but for now he enjoys the pleasure of his own conquest. He has carved his freehold out of the frontier or domains of an alien empire. All right, so now we have a quote. I tell you that I never eat or sleep or drink so well as when I hear the cry "up and at 'em" from both sides, and when I hear the neighing of riderless horses in the brush, and hear the shouts of "help, help," and see men fall, and the dead pierced in the side by gaily pennoned spears. From the diary of a 12th century French knight. Well, what a pleasant fellow he must have been. Yet for the moment, war is put aside, and the player will now change the barbaric tribes on his lands into devoted tenants. The process of civilizing one's domain and acquiring authority and respect among the greater rulers is the basis for play. However, more than likely, the process of rising from upstart to baron or even overlord will take several generations. A very important part of the game is ensuring the transition of rule to an heir. So, modern sensibilities, we might want to change some of this, right? We don't really want to talk about barbaric peoples that need to be civilized, but there are other ways to play that. And if we're using this as the way I would look at this, or my reason for using this, probably would not be to play it on its own, though maybe I will, and maybe I'll stream that if people are interested. Try to stream a solo playthrough of Scutage, but I'm really looking at this as things I can do with kind of my OSR game for those once you get into kind of middle or higher level play when folks are getting into domains. Fief equivalent damage. Players' holdings can be treated as having a life of their own. Just as in many games, the player generates a character, in Scutage, the player generates a fief. There are 3 aspects of the fief. These are prestige and wealth, arms and power, and vitality and soul. To a large extent, the 3 are interrelated, and the loss of in any aspect may spill over into others. All right, so those are those things we were talking about. So we were talking about in those personal goals, getting X amount of points into these things. They were talking about essentially leveling up your fiefdom in certain ways, or at least upping their attributes. Conceptually, the game is a study in building a society from its barbaric base into an invincible barony that can withstand external forces, internal mishaps, and even the policies of an occasional poor ruler. That sounds kind of dull, parenthetically in quotes. Don't do that to yourself, Scutage. It doesn't sound dull at all. The player performs actions to build his fief, accumulate positive conditions like fortifications or plague-free. Events tend to take these conditions away. Payment will be made by confiscating the wealth of the Guild of Mercers. The result would probably be biased towards the player surviving, if not for other players and rivals' interference. Now the game has elements of contest and fun. Not sure the point of those parentheticals, to be quite honest, but they're in there, so I'm reading them out. The three aspects of a fief are defined by the conditions listed beneath them. Thus, prestige and wealth is more than piles of coin, and arms and armor is gained from more than phalanxes of soldiers. In fact, diversity is another sign of strength, since random events tend to influence particular conditions and not general aspects of fief. All being acquired, all conditions can be lost, just like wounds on a character. In other words, it's not being too reliant on one particular aspect of your fief is good. Spread them out. Diversify. Okay, so the starting freehold. Upon initially generating a fief, the player will select one background from those that follow, and then roll an 8-sided die to see which points of prestige and wealth, arms and power, and vitality and soul his fief has. Grab a copy of the fief reference sheet and up and at 'em. All right, so here we're getting into it. So we're going to roll for each of these things to see how many points we start out with. All right, so we have force of arms. Right? Okay, player moves with his loyal. Oh, I see. So this is kind of a. Okay, so maybe I wasn't quite correct. I think what this actually is essentially we're creating the founding story of our fief. And so the first option is force of arms, which is that we moved in with our loyal legions into a region after a series of skirmishes and established our dominance. And this is also used in if we're tying it into Conrad's fantasy. So, okay, so if we decide that we came in here through conquering it, let's see, if we roll 1d8, we've got check, freehold, and society's base only. I'm not sure what that means. As number 1, but also famine free and plague free. As number 2, but also 1 point of garrison. As 5 plus another garrison. As 6 and yet another garrison. As 7 and still 1 more garrison. So I guess these are kind of your starting points. I'm not sure what check, freehold, and society's base. I'm not sure what that part means, but it looks like if we get above and beyond that, we start out by getting, hey, we don't have any famine, we don't have any plague, which are good, and then we're basically adding garrison, which I guess is defense. I guess we'll find that out later. My wish with things is that we don't get to using concepts that haven't been defined yet. I mean, I don't think the garrison or that kind of base value, whatever it is, has been defined yet. I'm guessing it's coming at the end. Let's move on. All right. Another way we could have founded our fief is through cunning and deception. We have manipulated another freehold's ruler, and now upon their death, we have inherited the holdings. This can also be used if a player should ever die without an heir. So in this case, on a score of 1 or 2, we've got that base only, and then so this one's not quite as good, I guess. Well, I don't know. It's all relative, I guess. But see, on a score of 3, we start out with famine free, 4, famine free and plague free. Then those 2 plus some garrisons. Oh, but we do get some treasury. So on this one, at the upper end of the scale, you don't get quite as much defense. That's my assumption of what a garrison is at this point. But you do get some treasury. And let's see, though. Another option is for us that we founded this fief through becoming an inspired leader. We return from adventures back home and challenge for leadership. Also, always a nice option. All right, so these, you get the freehold, the base, and then you're plague free, then the base or you're famine free. And then you get surplus land a couple times. You can add those on top. And then at the upper end of the scale, you can get some mercenaries and you get some mines. And again, we don't really know what these mean yet. They're very sort of opaque right now. We can also have founded our fief through magical conjuration. We establish control by a display of kindness and ruthlessness of purpose. Usually a servant of the player is the one performing the magic. However, the player can forfeit the point for, let's say, Zaire. I don't know what that means. Start with any one of the greater fief spells listed under sorcery. Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but presumably we've gotten it by magic. Our magic, somebody else's magic. Well, I mean, somebody else attached to us, a servant of ours, one of our followers is magic. In this case, okay, so there's something called Zaire, which we don't know what it is yet, or Zaire. I don't know if I'm supposed to pronounce that. And then we can also get it that, and it also being famine-free and plague-free. So with that option, we don't quite get as much stuff at the beginning, but I don't know what the stuff is, so it's hard for me to say if it's balanced or not. And I don't really care. Spoils of ill-gotten gain. We can do this. Let's say this is when we form our fief after obtaining a fortune, either over some number of adventures or the windfall of one great adventure. Presumably, we purchase the fief. And then we can, this one's all about treasury, it seems like, as far as rolling that d8. Oops. And then we could start from scratch. We served another master who died in battle and left his domain to us. And then what we can gain extra is either we start with just the base, or we start with some surplus, or we start with even more surplus. The rule starts with usually only a couple of conditions under each aspect. The rest must be gained by making executive options. Referee may also assign the player his initial holdings based upon his character's assets or recent adventures in a game. Note of clarity for all starting rolls: when the result says as another number result and that in turn included conditions of another result, everything is gained. Example, a roll of an 8 under force of arms would start with the base, no famine and nor plague, and 4 garrisons. Indeed, a man ready for conquest. All right. All right, so I'm going to skip the accelerated start. Let's get down to conducting actions. All actions in the campaign are divided into 4 degrees: simple, difficult, tasking, and limit, in parentheses, of ability. The degree and consequences of many tasks are listed later under the section on execution of authority. Referee is encouraged to expand those examples and establish other options open to his players. He sets the degree on new tasks and decides the consequences, customizing actions to better relate to his fantasy campaign. To determine success of any action, players are going to roll 2 8-sided dice and compare them to the table of task resolutions. Copy this table. It's also found on the reference sheet. Okay, so we haven't seen the table yet, but we can imagine basically what it's like. We're basically the referee or somebody. I don't know if you were playing solo how you would do it, but you have actions and you're going to have essentially DCs, right? Difficulties for those actions: simple, difficult, tasking, and at the limit. Options, events, and battle. In Scutage, consequences of actions are not so cut and dry: black or white, success or fail. 2 other results may occur. Mixed are tasks generally successful in outcome, but to a lesser extent or with undesired side effects. Mishap is more than failure. Result has additional, usually dire, consequences. All these consequences are detailed with the description of the event or action that forces the dice roll. So we have some, I like that, some mixed, right? It's not just pass fail. You've got some options there. There's mishap, more than fail. There's mixed results. Then there's, or mixed success, success with a hint of failure, normal failure, mishaps, successes. I guess they don't mention if there is a more than success. So definitely there's more ways to on the failure side than success side, but that's okay. Literally, all actions can be documented on the fief reference sheet. Player records his losses and gains, tally of errors, marriage status, even treaties, and enemies. Upon receiving bonus points in one's executive abilities, though these as well are noted on the record sheet. So yeah, everything's on your record sheet. So keep it close. Keep it safe. Special conditions in a fief. When a fief begins a campaign season, another yearly turn, as either impoverished or unguarded, an initial roll is made to determine a result. Let's see. Okay, populace impoverished. Remaining points, vitality and soul, degree of task. 3 or less, limit 4 or 5, tasking 6 or 7, difficult 8 or more, simple. Let's see. Modify roll by rulers bonus for fetal management. Okay, so you're going to look at the remaining points in your vitality and soul, and that will determine the degree, the difficulty of this task roll you're going to make. Then presumably you have to roll it, or I guess this is the initial roll. And if you succeed, people still trust you. And there's, just maybe a little mumbling or grumbling. Everyone's pretty much still on board. If it's mixed, you still succeed, but you need to, I guess, expend. I don't know if expend is the same as lose, but you're going to have to, I guess you're going to have to pay 1 point of vitality and soul. I don't know if this means you get it back at some point or if it's just what kind of resource it is or it's just gone. You fail, you get some moderate disorder, and you have to expend a point of arms and power to maintain order. And then if you really fail, there's serious disorder. You have to expend a D8 worth of arms and power to maintain order. Most of this loss can be attributed to desertion or troops changing to side of tenants. Ouch. So that's almost right. You're going into a revolt situation at that point. That's if your populace has this condition they're calling impoverished. If your fief is unguarded, you have to make a task, still checking against that vitality and soul to determine the difficulty of this task. If you succeed, they still trust you, and there's not much going on, same as with impoverished. Mixed is also the same as with impoverished. You're just going to have to spend a point of vitality and soul. If you fail, there's moderate corruption and banditry, which consumes a point of prestige and wealth. And then if it's a mishap, you have total lawlessness, cats and dogs sleeping together, and you're going to lose 1d8 of your prestige and wealth. And that is just, most of it can be attributed to incursion of outside forces. There you have it. So you don't want to start out the year unguarded or impoverished. Seems like bad news, which makes sense. When a point is lost, crossed off from list, I don't like sometimes when they don't put the A's, the does, and stuff. It's just from list. From a list, the condition changes. So proclamations which outlaw guilds, mining, usury, slavery, or magic may need to be repealed to handle problems of governing. These may be later reestablished, but not without another execution of authority, appropriate dice rolls. Similarly, legions are destroyed or even specific guilds disbanded to cover losses. Yet the masters and commanders of these forces may hold a permanent grudge against a ruler that sanctioned their downfall or disgrace. Good plots for character interaction, but not powerful enough in game terms to be called rivals. Okay. Perhaps the strangest of all things will be the loss of church or fortification, which might be dismantled for materials destroyed in just one category. Thus, a church that draws pilgrims, prestige, might be purged of art and beauty, stripped of splendor, and yet still holds emotional value, vitality, and soul to tenants. Likewise, splendid castles and harbors can shelter commerce, add to feelings of security, and serve as bastions in war. Events in battle will damage aspects of the overall fortification. Whew. Seemed like there was a lot to digest there, and I'm not sure I got it all, but I guess the point is, I think that you can have different. Tilt this way. You can have different things going on in the kingdom in terms of your kingdom, I guess, in your fief, in terms of factions or different sort of buildings or things, and that sometimes you need to pull apart some of these groups or buildings or these I guess things that you have put there to, I guess, cover losses or do something else. And of course, if you do that, there are consequences to doing it. So if you add these guilds and then you need to get rid of the guilds to do something else, then you're going to have foster some ill will of the guilds, and there might be some side effects. Same thing if you've been building up the church, and then you need to take it down and do something else. Same thing. And I'm not sure I completely got it, but hopefully it will make more sense. Why am I off center? Get me back on center. Thank you. Mayhaps it will make more sense as we go. Let's see. Players may even attempt to gain back points he is missing. However, a success will replace only the missing points. Example, player who has previously obtained husbandry but has lost the prestige and wealth point could still attempt to capitalize on pastures under feudal management to recover the missing point of arms and armor. Of course, he would only gain what he lacks. That should be obvious. It's actually not that obvious, but I think that's because we don't understand how all these things interconnect yet. And they're giving examples that require knowledge of other areas we haven't seen yet to make the example flesh it out, which always bothers me because it just makes it difficult. Why don't you tell me about these things and then give me an example to wrap it up all together instead of getting into feudal management and husbandry and these other skills or things that we have no idea what they are yet because we're new and we're coming to this completely blind. All right. Even despite losses in the case of the 4 region classifications listed on the damage chart, freehold, canon, city, state, barony, player continues to gain benefits of these so long as he has both or either one of the points of the points. Thus, a canon loss of arms and power still maintains its scholars, allowing extra roll of legislation. See execution of authority later in text for more details on benefits. Okay, again, not very helpful since we don't really know anything about the benefits of these different levels of freehold, but I guess we'll just have to keep that in the back of our mind. We'll see what is next. We have heirs in succession. I'm going to kind of pass over that a little bit. You got to do it. You got to, at one point we're going to roll some dice, see about an heir. I'm just going to skip. Let's go down to seasonal events. Before conducting executive options, each campaign season, flip and resolve. Each campaign season, flip and resolve a random event from the deck. In head-to-head play, the order of selection can be decided at random, although there is no advantage or disadvantage imparted by order. Everyone gets an event. So if we recall on the last one of these, and I forget which book it was, they used tarot cards. So this is also using tarot cards. So this is what is it called? The main, I don't know, the high cards. I forget the name of it now. The major arcana, I think is what it is. Magician. If you get the Domitian, you've got a magician, you've got a guild war in your hands. The high priestess, you've made a magical discovery. If you get the empress, there's a challenge for ownership. The emperor is called price of idle wealth. Not sure what that means. The hierophant gets religious intolerance. Lovers gets you take 2 more and combine them. Chariot gets you an appointment in the realm. Justice gets you corruption in the courts. The hermit gets you conspiracy. The wheel of fortune, let's see, you get treat as last major carol picked, then reshuffle the deck. And that's a weird one. Does that mean, I don't know, maybe in between things you're not supposed to shuffle, so that one you shuffle? I'm not sure what that one means. Force, you get internal conflicts. The hangman is forage and unruliness. Death brings the plague, and temperance brings an unwanted breach into the underworld. Ooh, that one. Now that's one I want to see. Devil brings you power struggle. Tower of destruction brings you a devastating fire. The moon brings you a sinister request. I like the sound of that. Star brings you a petition from vassals. The sun brings you special gifts. The world brings you unusual weather. Judgment gives you a momentary lapse of reason. Wasn't that a Pink Floyd album? Fool gets you warped magic. Cups gets you, okay, so I guess you're mixing in the minor arcana as well. So cups will get you feudal aid and incidents. Rods, affairs of the manor, coins, prosperity and swords, field battle, and siege. So I guess if you're doing all the tarot together, odds are you're probably going to get, I think by the number of cards each, right, you're going to get more likely to get the cups, rods, coins, or swords than the major arcana. So the major arcana more unlikely draws. And it makes sense then that they're more, I guess, scary or powerful than the cups, rods, coins, and swords events. So it seems like with all of these, you're going to be making rolls. I'm not going to go through all the rolls. We can remember they're always going to have 3 levels, right? There's going to be success, mixed success, failure, and mishap. Oh, let's see. So the magician gives you a guild war. I just want to read what the okay. So I guess they're really up to you as to what it is. The looks like they're just giving you the mechanics of things. Whether you are, well, I guess I'll just go through this one, right? So if you succeed, any disagreements are just arbitrated. If it's a mixed success, uh, guilds call for a change in justice. You lose a point. Lose the point even-handed justice. We don't know what that means yet, so it doesn't really mean much. But if you don't have that, then you have to roll again, and you're more likely to fail. You can lose some prestige. But so I'm just kind of going to go through these. I guess some of these have flavor text attached to them. Some of them don't. I'm just going to go through the flavor texts because that to me is more interesting at this juncture than the oh hey Keaton Bird and chat. Glad to finally catch one of these live. I'm glad you made it. I'm going to go through just the flavor texts, and I am watching the chat. If you see me look obliquely, that's me generally looking at my second monitor to see what's going on with the chat. So let me know if any requests for me to read anything, but I think I'm gonna stick to just the flavor text where there is flavor text. Guild War there isn't, but clearly this is a matter of 2 guilds in your fief disagreeing with each other and taking it to such a degree that it requires some sort of intervention. The magical discovery, a wandering wizard asked to stay in your lands, not yet the power of a Zaire. I guess that's some kind of high mage. But he needs a secure place to complete studies. Regardless, you're going to gain a bonus to your execution of authority with sorcery. You can refuse the person, nothing happens. If you agree, you're going to roll a d8 and have to go down that list. Challenge for ownership just looks like some claimants are trying to challenge you for ownership of your fief, and I guess you could potentially lose some of your surplus land. Yeah. D8 points of surplus land, which I guess is supposed to signify that the challenger has defeated you in some way and taken some bits of your fief for their own. Price of idle wealth. All right, so this is basically corruption and graft. Religious intolerance. Theological Inquisition begins a fanatic series of witch hunts trying to discover the leader of a dangerous cult. And you can lose, looks like either, I don't know if Zaire is magic. They haven't said, so I don't know. And not sure, but I guess either kind of magic or your unified religion. It's bad, right? We don't want it. There's an appointment in the realm. An emissary arrives with a petition. You gain some bonus. Let's see. What else is going on with this one? You could obtain a title. I guess they say like in the Conrad's fantasy version of this, you could gain a title. Oh, and if you're already in the Curia Regis, you could be proclaimed as Overlord. All right, so that's a good one. Grandfather of Thieves. So this is corruption in the courts. Grandfather of Thieves has exercised his control in your region. I don't know who that is, but I'm guessing some kind of head of a thieves guild type organization. You can lose the power of your courts can decrease along with some other stuff. Hermits, let's see, conspiracy. It's just kind of sedition. Your everyday sedition. Internal conflicts might be have to do with the army. Let's see, legions kept orderly. Minor incidents of forage. Moderate disorder. Yep. So it's definitely they maybe could rename that one to make it a little bit clearer. So by internal conflicts, they're really talking about issues in your military forces. With the worst thing happening that they proclaim their leader as a new ruler, and you have to fight them. So the hangman, forage, and unruliness. Mercenaries. This is basically so if the internal conflicts was about your internal military, getting into potential issues, then Forge and Unruliness is basically things like mercenaries and other kind of wandering troops who belong to no one that are basically mucking about in your kingdom. We've got Plague. Epidemic strikes the thief, lose a point for plague free. Okay, so I think sometimes they say lose points and it's like there's a box. I guess it'd be nice if I could have that reference sheet up, but I imagine when they say lose points, it's really like there's a status or condition that's called plague free, and here we just uncheck it if we had checked it. But in any case, plague. Next one, this is one I was really curious about. Unwanted breach into the underworld. And it's okay, so these are, I guess that they're kind of like, I want to say mole men, but I guess like the Underdark or some other kingdom beneath the ground that can pop up because the mishap level, a kingdom of dwarves raise the surface. But you can, replace them with chuds, mole men, whoever else you want down there who could be just been waiting to take out to come back on the surface and make their revenge. There's a power struggle, so the Overlord has died without an heir, and it's caused civil war. Okay, we have a devastating fire. That's pretty obvious. We have a sinister request. An emissary arrives with alarming requests. So you get some stuff. You potentially lose some stuff. It's kind of a big block of text. I want to definitely get through to other things, so kind of riffing through these. On the quicker side, you can get petitioned by your vassals. You can get special gifts. Unusual weather. I mean, all right, so you can have fun with some unusual weather. All right, momentary lapse of reason says mistakes are made and the player suffers a period of mishaps and waste caused by poor judgment or following bad advice. And then I guess you're supposed to roll an asterisk for actions of knavery. And potentially, if you roll really well, I guess you can get saved from making a rash action, but otherwise it's you do something stupid is basically it. It's an interesting way because I presume as a player, you're probably going to do something stupid anyway. In this case, they're basically mandating, no, whether you've been meticulous in your thinking and planning, you got harebrained one day, you drank too much mead, and you just went and did something really stupid. Okay, warped magic. There's a magical event. Then the cups, feudal aid and incidents. That could be a number of things, kind of on the smaller side. Could be an expenditure. You just have to basically pay. Personal, wait, hold on. Players expend. Oh, that's a whole other section. Is it? No. Or is this part of the aid? Oh, I see. Okay, so sorry. When we only have a couple levels of headers, sometimes they get confusing. Okay, so that's part of the feudal aid and incidents, basically expending stuff, paying stuff towards the overlord. And then we have affairs of the manor, and then stuff you have to pay just for upkeep. You got prosperity, and everything's just thriving. Feudal Eshat, Scat. I don't know how to pronounce that either. If you lose a point of arms and power enforcing a legal mandate that after waste gains nothing. So I guess is that part of prosperity? I guess that's part of prosperity. You can either lose or you can gain. Let's see. Hop into the chat again. Any chance of you doing a read along of any 2E or 2.5 modules? I've seen my BX read alongs. I thought something like the first bit of Night Below would be interesting. I could. So not to get sidetracked too far, but yeah, sure. I don't own as many second edition stuff as I do first edition and BX, but I do have Night Below. I actually have the physical module. I probably also have it through electronic means. So, as I will say in the chat, yeah, sure. And let me know what module. What module you're interested in. You're interested in. Let's see. Oh, that's the same one. All right. Same comment. Yes, I'd be happy to do second or is there a 2.5? Remember 3E and 3.5. So I don't know that 2.5 rings a bell. Okay, so we're getting through those. And again, I'm kind of whipping through these a little bit because A, I'm not sure how much time I have, and B, I want to make sure I get to the guts of this stuff. So if you get swords, we had field battles or sieges. I'm gonna wipe my glasses. So rivalries get potentially increased. I guess there's a rivalry kind of score. Or the number of your rivals increases by one. You have to make a call to arms, defend the realm. Good stuff. You talk about player versus player. Ooh, there's ransom. All right, so let's get to execution of authority. Here we go. During each campaign season, usually the summer, the player may conduct affairs and set policy on his holdings. The spring is spent planting, and fall and harvest. Winter keeps all indoors, so summer season allows the player as ruler his chance to assemble regions, tenants, and govern. Perform actions at his direction. Character may perform one action in any category each campaign season. For instance, if he raises his troops to attack, or in the case of attack, that will be his action. Otherwise, there are numerous other tasks that might be attempted to improve the health and resources of one's fief, their holdings. Rulers may always decide to do nothing after resolving his random event. Okay, in head-to-head play without a moderating referee, each player should secretly write down his actions. That makes sense. Then all the players reveal their planned actions. If necessary, roll dice to determine the order. All right, so you have to kind of, if you're playing against other people, you got to sort of gamble a little bit, try to figure out what they're doing. Oh, let's see. Ovaltine Patrol says, I think 2.5 is the skills and options books that came out just before 3. Aha. Okay. I got you. Sorry about that. A little sidetrack into 2.5e, but that does explain things a bit more for that. So thank you, Ovaltine Patrol. All right. Got some special cases. Additionally, any region classified as canon may take an extra role each campaign season in legislation. This represents the working on behalf of the ruler by a scholastic order founded by region's doctrines. Likewise, a region classified as barony may take an extra role of feudal management. And lastly, city-states may take an extra role of urban improvement. These extra rolls are still made with any bonus modifier as ruler monitors the efforts. They may not be made in any season in which the ruler attempts to marshal troops. Okay, so if you're not marshaling troops and you have a fiefdom that fits one of those, you get some extras. So it makes sense that you might then try to get a bunch of them. Like you said, you can be a city-state and a canon and a barony at the same time. And if you were to have all those at the same time, boy, you get a bunch of extra rolls. So probably makes it something to do, but I'm guessing it's a little bit difficult because it's also an end condition, which means I imagine it must be somewhat difficult to get and keep. All right, special case. When a ruler's lands are invaded, he may assemble his rank and file regardless of his decision to initially conduct other actions. However, an order to wage war in order to wage war, this will monopolize the fief holder's action. So I guess if you are getting invaded, you can, I guess, switch your action to assembling, but then you lose that on whatever action you were going to do. All right. All right, so here we have the general categories for these executive options, which I'm guessing as we're looking at is every season, you can do one of each of these. So I having that correct? I'm just trying to go back. Let's see. Each campaign season, the player may conduct affairs upon the spring. Okay. One action in each category. Okay, so our categories are feudal management, intrigue and politics, legislation, martial troops, sorcery, urban planning. Is that it? That's it. We get one of those every summer, or one action within each of those every summer. All right, so we're going to skip past the multiple tasks, go down and see feudal management. These actions cover the daily operation of the estates. Makes sense. We got some examples of feudal management. Ooh, a whole bunch. Okay, agricultural reform, appointing a magistrate, capitalizing on harvests, capitalizing on pastures, cleaning land of pestilence. Gotta love that. Collecting rents. What is drafting? I guess you're training a militia? Oh, no. Okay. The difficulty depends on whether you've trained militia exists. What is the success there? All right. So you're basically creating mercenaries or I guess getting mercenaries. Enlist barbarians and foreigners, which we should probably retitle that in this day, but again, more kind of building up troops. Ensure law and order, equip the sheriff to enforce laws, establish citizen soldiers, hire heroes. Let's see, hospitality. Allow ancient border guards to barracks on your lands, gain points. Okay, so I guess you're offering hospitality. You can invite a wizard to build a sanctuary. You can go prospecting. You could buy property. And that's it. So then you have intrigue and politics. And they say examples, so presumably if you're playing with a referee, which I think at least how I would be using this in this case, I would be the referee, giving these options to my players. I would have to come up if they did stuff outside these examples, I would have to just think about what they would be and what the success, fail, and mishap states would be. And I think if I was taking stuff that they wanted to do that was outside these examples and I was going to run them, I think it's incumbent upon me to make sure they understand what can happen if they try them, right? Because here they can look in this book and they can say, okay, if I want to establish citizen soldiers, I could see kind of what I'm risking, what I might gain, what I might lose. So then if I decide to do something off book, it shouldn't be opaque. It shouldn't just be, oh, I'm going to roll some dice and they're not going to know what could happen. Well, no, they should be able to know because they need to be able to decide whether that's a good use of their action. All right, intrigue and politics. Kind of get the idea of what those are, but they also reflect making emissary contacts with other rulers. At times, there will appear to be a fine line between politics and intrigue. Yes. Politics involve the greater strategy, which relates more to establishing policy than typical conception of shrewd politicking. Okay. Right. So, what kind of stuff can we do? All right. Here we go. So, we can arrange marriages, try to assassinate somebody. We can try to bribe a commander. We could try a covert act. We could try to discredit somebody. We can we can try to I guess recruit an illicit trader, or you're enticing someone. Yeah, so you're trying to recruit a spy. I guess illicit trader. That's a nice term because it covers a bunch of stuff. Try to ensure our right of lordship. We can start an inquisition. We can send a missionary out to the folks outside of our domesticated realm. We can murder someone. We can negotiate a treaty. We can clarify a treaty between players. So if you're dealing with players and NPCs, I'm not sure how that would work, but actually it probably works about the same. You can clarify a treaty. Are you taking an oath of fidelity or are you asking for one? Gain points. I guess you're taking an oath of fidelity to the current overlord. You're petitioning an appointment in the realm. You're petitioning a charter to bear arms. You petition for stewardship. You can petition for troops. You could try to reconcile a rivalry. You could try to seduce a relative. Gross. You can, I guess, send spies, right? Which I presume is the one you're trying to get somebody who's already in another kingdom to be your spy. In this case, you're trying to send one of your people into another kingdom. But you can try to sponsor claimants. We saw that one of the events was people coming in saying that they should be ruler, and here you can try to support them or maybe entice some people to rise up and try to make a claim on somebody else's fief. And then you can try to unify the realms. All right, so then we have legislation, right? We have the ability to grant charters and pass laws. Stuff we can do in this case: collect tariffs and tolls, conduct free trade, grant freedom to loyalists, grant limited rights to self-govern, grant a monopoly to Chandlers, but not to Rosses. Grant monopoly to Delvers. Grant monopoly to lend moneylenders. Grant monopoly to mongers. Grant monopoly to sell chattel. Grant monopoly on textiles. So basically, grant a bunch of monopolies. I don't think I need to go through all those. You see, you can make a proclamation against bondage. You can make a proclamation against money lending. I don't want to use the term. They use the term Shylock. I'll probably steer a little bit clear of that one. We should probably change that to something else. But you can make a bunch of proclamation. I like the proclamation against underworlds. In case you missed it, if you're just tuning in, there's a point where creatures from the underworld can rise up and try to attack you under certain events. This one you can make. I guess you can make a proclamation against them. I think it's just kind of funny. And then let's see, proclamation against. I don't know. I don't want to use witchcraft. I don't know. We can whatever. Magic, strange magics. I don't know. We could probably pick some other phrasing for that. We could marshal troops, which is basically right. We're turning our arms and power points into legions for defensive battles. This is okay. So this is you're going defensive with this one. Let's see, ruler's commitment. Oh, I see. You can risk points. Okay, that's kind of cool. All right, so let's get some examples of marshaling troops. We can annex territory. We can destroy a rival. Oh, wait a minute. Didn't it say that was defensive? How is annexing? I guess, let me go back. Marshal troops. This represents turning arms and power into legions for defensive battle. This is also the assembling of troops in order to seize lands. Oh, okay. So I don't know why they say defensive battle. They're going to say it's also for offensive battle. It's just for battle then, right? Am I the only one? Hello? Bueller? All right. So you can annex territory, destroy rivals, establish a trade port, have an internal purge, ordain cultural traditions. I'm not sure what that has to do with military, but I'm not going to worry about it. We can seize a prime location. We can subjugate a lord. Oh, that's it. All right. So fairly simple stuff. Sorcery. And it seems to be an authorial, a note from the author here. Though it pains me so, I must confess that the majority of players are accustomed to a system of spells when conducting magic. Looking at a list and simply selecting an option is an easy way to simplify play. To this end, I propose the following dozen or so magical alterations that have been requested from wizards in the service of thieves. Okay. And then talks a little bit about Conrad's Fantasy, which we're not interested in at this time. So I guess I'm guessing that in Conrad's Fantasy, that it's a more of a loose system as opposed to the kind of spells like we consider in 5th edition and D&D type games. But that is neither here nor there for this. We'll just see what kind of spells we can get. Or at least that are, book spells. The one you see in the catalog. You can always order custom. If you just want something pret-a-porter, so to speak, for magic, this is the kind of things you can get. Apprehensions. Spell creates unnatural and unjustified fears in someone. Useful. Bind demon. Command weather. Got a curse. We have a death spell. We have enchantment. Envision in flame. It basically just creates devastating fires or cancels them. Fashion in stone. Fertility. The gray slumber. Similar to death spell, but instead the victim is placed in a deep, seemingly unbreakable trance. It says trace, but I imagine they mean trance. So kind of Sleeping Beauty style, one would guess. Pestilence, portals. Ooh, raised ghost warriors. Right, I guess you could think kind of Aragorn and the whatever those guys' names were. His names are escaping me at the moment. Shake the ground, kind of create a tremor. Ward. And then, of course, there's a note saying that, hey, you could do other spells. But you can't create money. Can't create gold. We have urban improvements. Probably some of the most lasting actions a ruler will take will be in expanding his townships and cities. Yeah, yes, that's true. Things we can do. We can let's see, barracks and magazine. I guess build or increase, improve. Battlements and ramparts. Broker. I guess it has to do with. Looks like you're gaining wealth. Common good. I guess you're concentrating on public buildings and services. Establish a colony. I guess improve or create a place of worship. Improve or create walled estates. All right, so here we get some campaigns. So those are also, I guess, just before I get into that, those are all the things we can do. Obviously, right, we're dealing at a level of abstraction here. When you're creating, walled estates, we're not getting into the details of how much. We're obviously not creating maps with what's in them. We're tracking this at a high level. So we're just looking at in general places of worship, not a particular church for this person or whatever. We're saying, okay, just overall, we're moving this up. So everything is fairly abstract, which I think for this works. If we wanted to get more in the weeds, we probably can, but for most things, this is probably sufficient. And then, of course, if you are like me and you're thinking about taking something like this and integrating it into your game, then you build in the amount of granularity that you want, either at this point in the mechanics or when you've made the roles and you're taking those mechanics and turn them into stuff happening in the fiction. You upgrading your place of worship maybe takes a church, or then you build a cathedral to whatever, right? And then you have a specific place, even though the mechanics are just dealing with a general abstracted state. All right, so campaign notes. I will try to avoid giving a primer on feudalism. The last thing most gamers need is another history lesson. There are many fine books on feudalism. I highly recommend a visit to the public library. Okay, let's see. I was hoping there would be something else. Let's see. What are we doing here? Feudalism is not just chivalry and medieval swordsmen. Feudalism is a way that people can maintain their safety and security when faced by outside threat. Yet at the same time, feudalism is a form of government which allows strong-minded, powerful men to maintain a great deal of autonomy. Feudalism was practiced in Europe, but it also was the basis of government in very different places like Japan and at other time periods like Egypt. For a moment, I will assume that you know nothing about feudalism and the background of barony. I will try to explain why feudalism becomes a system of government and what it means in game terms. All right, I don't know that we need all this. Do we need all these? All right, I'm going to skip around a little bit. Kings in Scutage terms are barons. Barons control areas of the campaign. They dislike one another, but recognize that greater evil exists in the world. All barons seek to become greater overlords and dominate others. Likewise, most players will desire to rise from starting positions as freelance fortune hunters to estate owners and eventually barons in their own right. The sheer independence that most players exercise make them excellent examples of knights errant, important men without land wandering around looking for adventure. Term knight need not apply solely to the warrior class knights. In feudal terms are men who swear fidelity to someone, pledge to serve, and give counsel when called to aid. And we could substitute, people, men, women, others. Doesn't have to, particularly in fantasy realms and then even in real life, doesn't have to be a man, right? So don't feel limited in that regards. Let's see. Everyone wants to rule the world, right? Tears for Fears had it right all along. Let's see. We got a lot of text here. I'm trying to scan for the stuff that I think is most impotent to our present purpose. Most individuals very near side of the authority. Empires rule at times with great nobility. Vassals owe their lords certain feudal aids and incidents. Religions aid greatly by these established hierarchies. Okay, so basically talking about I don't know. I think they're talking about a lot of stuff. Pledges, how they get moved from become more and more culturally accepted and part of the fabric of society. Fealty is based on swearing loyalty, giving up part of one's own freedom and independence to obtain greater security. If you have the chance to do that, right? Because serfs and the people born in that didn't have a chance to not join this system. But yes, if you were part of the class that could, then that's true. But many folk did not have that option. But, in adventuring terms and fantasy terms, right, we don't consider the players to be sort of serfs that are forced to do things for other powers. Though maybe they start out that way. So yes, they more or less have the choice, usually. Okay. Here is our fief reference sheet. Probably use a modern redo, but as I had surmised, we have a lot of these things here that are listed on the page. Those look like when they say put points in or out, they're really talking about checking or unchecking a state. And I mean by state, I mean a condition. So you can have the condition of Frontier Legion, or you can not have it, right? And I put an X in it if you've got it, erase the X if you lose it, and so on and so forth. And then I guess those bigger ones at the bottom is when you are actually tracking numbers, or I guess at the top and the bottom. So in the parentheses next to the major ones, those are where you put your points that you have, and then at the bottom you can put in your actual numbers of treasuries, surplus lands, mines, treaties, etc. Right? Let's see, just checking in with the chat. My familiarity with second edition is rather shallow, but I like anything on the grittier, grimmer, weird fiction side. I own Gates of Firestorm and quite like it. AD&D aside, anything that comes out of Melsonian Arts Council is simply delicious, and I love to hear commentary on their work. Well, I have some Melsonian Arts Council. I have some of their designs from a while back. I could pull those out and read them. I think I only have the printed ones and not PDFs. Sorry to be sidetracking there from this, but yeah, that makes sense. I could try to work with that. I'll pull out some Melsonian Arts Council stuff. I'm definitely in the grittier and grim end, though I like to add some levity here and there. I think when I was younger, I was more of a grim, darkness. Now I like to kind of mix it up a little bit. I have my own kind of flavor of weird that I like. I think I've seen the limits of, or maybe just the difference between weird and gonzo, because I like the kind of stuff that's weird and a sword of sorcery weirdness. Some of their stuff gets a little bit on the kind of, I don't know, I would say goofy side, but I'm not trying to, no offense, please, to anyone who that I'm not so much into, but yeah, that works. All right, so back to this reference sheet. Yeah, okay, so we got some notes. So that's basically your sheet. And then, okay, we've got, all right, so this is actually pretty good. So this page, I guess you could print one of these out and put it under a plastic something so you could or laminate it, because you can use this one over and over again. I'm presuming you can use this each season to go and check which one of the things you're doing. It looks like it has all the things you've got down, and you just check the ones you're doing, which is handy. Ooh, is that it? Oh, wait, is that it? No, yes, that is it. All right, so wow, this is pretty short. So only 24 pages. It's got a lot in there. Obviously, small type. That is Scutage. Sticking with Scutage. It's got a lot of cool stuff in here. I think what it's giving you, ultimately, look, obviously you can play this as a game. And maybe I'll try that sometime, just roll up something and kind of see what happens. I think its usefulness to me, the way I'm looking at this, is it gives a basic framework, and I would probably adjust this framework, change some stuff, but it definitely is a good kind of baseline if you need a skeleton on which to start thinking about the sort of scaffolding on which you want to try to build kind of domain management stuff. I think something like this works really well because it has a lot of the angles covered. I don't know if I would change some things. I think I would have to play through it first to see how it's balanced. If it's balanced kind of the way I would balance it versus the way, right? Because there's always these things with these materials. Okay, it's how they like it, and it gives them the kind of distribution of events and things that they like. But is that the distribution that you want for your game? Well, is this the distribution that I want? I don't know yet, but it's certainly a good starting point. It definitely gives you, like I said before, right? It's abstracted, so we're not dealing in a lot of nitty gritty here. You're doing things that kind of on an abstracted level. You're getting a spy. Well, what's his name? The system doesn't care. It's just like you have one spy, or you have the spy, right? It's like James Bond. The actor changes, the thing changes, but there's always a James Bond in play. Well, you have your James Bond. Obviously, if you're tying this into your game, and then you want to take that abstract spy and turn it into an actual NPC, or turn it into some kind of network of NPCs, you could do that, and then probably whatever game you're using, you'll just use that to create the NPCs. These rules are not concerned with that. These rules are concerned only with this kind of the broad look, the looking down at the chessboard and or the the big map with the big figures on it, and using those shuttleboard things to scoot them around to show what's what and what's where and what resources they have and what they don't have. But I think it works very well for that. Things I might look at. I mean, there's nothing wrong with using the D8s. If I was just me, I'm looking at going, if I was going to use in kind of OSR BX, maybe I'd see if I could change those to 2D6s just to, I don't know, kind of tie it in with other sort of mechanics or D20 for that matter, but it's fine. The tarot cards are interesting. Obviously, you could convert those to other playing cards or die rolling. I don't know, again, the distribution. I don't know if tarot cards, they have the same number of cards as regular playing cards. I'm not sure. So I don't know if I was using regular playing cards and how that would work. But I guess I don't know. I'd have to look at it. I'm rambling on that part because I'm not really familiar enough with tarot cards, but you could probably convert that in some way if you didn't want to use tarot, or if you wanted to use tarot. I think particularly in person, something like tarot cards are really neat for these kind of things because they're really visual. You go to every player and they flipping a tarot card and they say, oh, they got the hangman or the fool, or whatever. I don't know. It's really cool in that way. But since so much stuff is online now, it may lose a little bit. And if I was rolling stuff behind the scenes because I'm using it as the referee, and I'm going to then narrate the events of the players, maybe something else is just a little bit more convenient because here I am and where I am right now, I don't have tarot cards handy. So, but I always have dice. There's always die rollers I can find. I could put a die roller on my phone. So, might change that. But really, really good stuff from 1992. I like it a lot, and it definitely fills, I guess, I don't know if it's a gap, but as usually, the high level play just doesn't get as much attention as low level play. And I'm guilty of that too. I usually gravitate towards low level stuff than high level stuff. But this gives you a framework to move in, and I even really like the fief formation part of it because I could already think about events that could happen in my game, in which case I could then slide this in here as, hey, if you've done this place is open to you now if you want it, and if they want it, then you can start to work this stuff in. By the way, I really like these seasons. I've tried to kind of do that in my games a bit. I've talked about in the past and different things about kind of the cycle of campaigning, and I like doing downtime because it allows the world to breathe and forces the players to take a break. I really like the idea of summer being the time that you can really do stuff, and that winter and spring being fall and spring being kind of transitional, and then winter kind of being shut down a bit. And I definitely enjoy playing with that. I like the idea of, one, it gives you sort of yearly goals, because if you know that you're kind of going to be shut down wherever you are once winter comes, and you can talk about that for many reasons, how they can be so, right? The seas get too rough and ships just aren't going out. Passes through mountains close. Everybody's buttoned down. So if you get on the road, you better be supplied because it's going to be freezing. The animals come out, the weather gets bad. I mean, like the dangerous animals come out, weather turns bad. Just getting around is really tough. So that means that by that end of the fall period, you really got to have all your money. So, if you're starting your adventures in the spring, whatever else you have, you need to have money by the close of the fall to to be set for the winter. So I really like that as well. But I got a run that was Scutage from 1992 by Better Games. I'll try to be back for more. Maybe tomorrow I'll be able to get one more kind of daytime stream in before the world's going to go back to normal. But as usual, if you enjoy these, give them the thumbs up wherever you are. Subscribe wherever you are. It really helps me a lot. As I've said this before, I'm on kind of a sort of, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, at least on YouTube, by in about 2.5 weeks by my birthday. So that's my current goal. So if you feel like you could help me in that way, I'd appreciate it. Otherwise, there's links to Patreon if you want to help me out in that way. It's all good. But hey, other than that, have a great rest of your whenever. I'll talk to you later, and game on.